Globally, the world is short 500,000 surgeons with 143 million surgeries not being performed because there's insufficient surgeons, leading to 1.5 million deaths per year that could be avoided. Elliot, Inovus is transforming the way surgeons are trained so we can solve this global challenge. What are the components of the system that make this a reality?
First of all, thanks for highlighting the scale of the problem. I just want to frame what 1.5 million excess deaths actually relates to. So that's equivalent to all deaths from HIV, malaria, multi-drug resistant TB, and complications of pregnancy combined.
Staggering.
Those four diseases, with the amount of attention that they have, quite rightly, get a lot of press, and we're not talking about the problem that we have here. The antiquated approach that we have to training surgeons, which has been an approach that we've used for many years, which is this see one, do one, teach one apprenticeship style, where majority of the early learning curves at the patient bedside, that's no longer scalable to keep pace with the demand of the surgeons that we require. That's where our technology comes in, which is to try and move that learning curve out of the patient environment, away from the patient bedside, into a simulated environment, which doesn't have some of those constraints and can fill in some of that time that we now have.
What are the components of the Inovus system?
We have a hybrid approach to training surgeons, and I'll take a step back as to how we got to that approach, if that's okay. So we've just spoken about there that we still have this antiquated approach. A lot of the learning is still at the patient bedside. Why is that? Why have we not moved what we would call the early learning curve into the simulated environment? Problem is, simulators have existed for a while, but they had three main issues. Very expensive, so CapEx over $150,000, $160,000. Not that scalable, difficult to access. You can't really take them home with you. And finally, they use primarily virtual reality to train surgeons, and that brings with it issues around functionality or realism and what we call haptics or feel feedback. We put those issues as our core values centered to what we do. So we decided we're going to make technology that's more affordable, more accessible, more functional. And from a functional perspective, we place soft tissues in a box, because ultimately when you strip it back, a human is a soft tissue inside a box.
Synthetic tissues.
Correct, yes. So our tissues are synthetic, and then we allow the surgeon to use the tools that they would use in the OR to operate on those synthetic tissues. Now, what we didn't want to do is lose the positive pieces of virtual reality, immersive environments, the ability to create complications, the ability to track people's progress through computer vision and those sorts of things. So our platform overlays digital environments over the tissues. We put those onto a screen because surgeons operate on a screen, they don't operate wearing a headset, and then we track how well they're performing so we can give them an idea of, well, objectively I'm improving, and have I met an objective standard here?
How do you get the cost down from the several $100,000s that prices out health systems?
One of the quick answers is we became the manufacturer. We looked at this and said, okay, these technologies that are being manufactured, many of the people that develop them have a supply chain, and that supply chain is taking elements of cost and profit as they go along. So we said, well, if we can take the supply chain and bring that in-house, and then we can work out scalable manufacturing processes with the way the world was moving at the time, which was into things like additive manufacturing.
Leading from the $150,000 to $200,000 to sort of what scale of cost today?
Our technology compared to that would be sub $40,000 US, but we have a technology that provides exactly the same learning experience, which we put in the hands of the surgeons, which they can take with them, they can take them home, they can take them on the road, and they're sub $3,000.
Have you been able to measure, Elliot, the positive impact you've already had on surgical outcomes?
We have a clinical excellence strategy. We have surgeons who carry out research on our behalf so that they're independent. And we're seeing all sorts of figures coming through now. So for example, we have a health economics study that's being published, which shows cost savings for one procedure of over $142 million a year. And that's coming from the surgical efficiencies.
In terms of time?
Yes.
Time to complete.
Yes. And that leads back into that problem statement that you started out with, which is the reason we can't do these 143 million surgeries a year is multifactorial. One, we don't have enough surgeons, so we need to train 500,000 more surgeons. But number two, we're quite inefficient in our health systems when it comes to the operating, because a huge amount of the time in the OR is spent training, which is very important, right? But if we can take a lot of that time from the training from the OR and then focus on smaller parts of the training in the OR, because there should always be training in the OR for sure, that will again allow us to increase our capacity with the same number of surgeons that we already have.
Budgets in healthcare systems, public and privately funded, are very strained. You've developed a number of successful partnerships with healthcare systems that are not only budget constrained, but also tend to be very slow moving.
Yes.
Making it difficult for startups. Elliot, how is Inovus navigating the complexity of the health systems to form these great partnerships?
We're not here to just sell widgets to people. We're here to make sure we put technology in people's hands that has long-term impact. We'll go often into the healthcare systems at the sort of residency program director level. We'll show them the technology, we'll show them the evidence that it has, and then we'll work with them to get buy-in from their residents, because we want them as the people using the technology, and then we'll get buy-in from the people with the money, as it were. And the way we do that is to say, we'll look at the efficiencies it can bring. Thing is, that's a hospital by hospital, residency program by residency program basis. That's good, but it's not getting to where we want to be, which is to completely standardize the training, so that if you're a surgeon in New York or LA or Wyoming, you're using the same platform and you're objectively being trained to the same standard. And that's where our big partnerships come in. We just announced a partnership with Hologic, who are a large strategic medtech, and the AAGL, leading Society for Gynecology Surgeons in America. And what we've been able to do there is Hologic have very kindly come in and supported the program by procuring our platforms, providing them to all the residency programs, and then we're using those platforms to deliver AAGL's standard curriculum. So in the next few months, every gynecologist in America will be using that platform to learn how to do minimally invasive surgery to a complete objective standard, which is exactly where we need to be.